Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Alex Scavone, and this is an introduction to philosophy, knowledge, and reality. So, as the first lecture of this class, I want to kind of go over just a general outline of housekeeping, some things that I expect from you throughout this session, and then also some expectations that you have of me throughout this session. After that, I will introduce just basic ideas and concepts of philosophy, and then we will look briefly at Bertrand Russell's The Value of Philosophy. So before we really get our hands dirty, it's important that we get a footing for how an online class works. And so I'm going to briefly explain the workings of online classes, talk to you about some aspects of the syllabus, and then certain expectations we both should have going forward. Because this course is fully online, you will not be coming to class physically. Instead, you'll be expected to attend via the internet, having discussions throughout the weeks, possibly participating in journals, viewing lectures, taking assessments, taking quizzes, and so forth. I will be posting out announcements, so you will be expected to read the announcements when they come out. And there will also be Skype sessions that happen on a weekly basis for anyone who wants to chat via video chat. And so if you're not familiar, this course will be held on Canvas. And Canvas is a very easy, navigable platform for classes, but if you're unfamiliar with it can be a little bit confusing at first. So what I recommend is that you go through and just look around. There's nothing that you can really break, just as long as you don't click into the assessments and start taking the assessments, you should be fine. There is a link on the home page that takes you to Canvas tutorials, and that may help you as we move forward. Also, if you have any questions relating to Canvas or the course in general, you are always welcome to contact me at the email address on the syllabus or on one of these face-to-face or video chat Skype sessions. And so each week I'll put out a number of announcements that relate to the material, little tips and tricks to navigate the course, perhaps reminding you of due dates or papers or quizzes to provide insight on maybe further supplementary materials and all of that stuff. Discussions will be a part of your graded piece of the class. And so in many of the weeks, you'll be asked to participate in discussion. And your discussions are going to be mainly with your peers, but I will also be commenting and participating in these discussions. Essentially, what you'll be expected to do is answer the prompt in a 150-word response, and then respond to two of your fellow classmates or myself in roughly 50 words or more. Now, with philosophy, it's important that we get an idea of what others are thinking, because it may be the case that something that I think about a given subject may not be from the same perspective as someone else. So hearing and listening to other people's ideas might open me up to new avenues of thought or new perspectives to take with regard to the topic. You will also have to do journals. And what a journal is in this class is essentially just your relationship and your reaction to a reading for that specific week. So what I would like you to do in the journals sections are to summarize what the reading is about in roughly 100 words or so, and then write another 100 words of your reaction or response to that reading. What are your opinions? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's a good theory, a bad theory? Do you think that there are inherent problems? Has it invoked an emotional response? This will be the journals, just seeing how you relate to the material. And so I ask that when it comes time for you to do the journals, you are submitting those prior to listening to the lectures. I don't want my influence playing a part in what you're writing in the journals. In addition to discussions in journals, you will also be asked to do quizzes each week, with the exception of the week of the midterm. And essentially, the quizzes are just going to test your comprehension and ability to analyze the reading from that specific week. They'll typically be 5 to 15 questions and relate to the reading and the lecture for that week. It's important that you note that these quizzes are timed, and so when you start them, you will be expected to finish them. Make sure you are allotting enough time to take the quiz. Do not navigate away from the page. Do not try and pause or stop the quiz. Once you click into it, you must complete it. So be cautious when you are taking the quizzes. Midterm and the final are very similar. It's important that you are allotting yourself with the proper amount of time to take the midterm and the final, and that you are not navigating away from the page while you are taking the test. If you navigate away from the page or you click out of the test, it will automatically submit, and that'll be it. Now, with the midterm and the final, I'm essentially going to ask 3 questions to which you will answer 2 of them. So you will get to choose 2 out of the 3 questions that are being asked. And then I would like you to write an essay answering those 2 questions. Now, your answers should be roughly between 300 and 400 words. If they're going over that, that's fine. However, these questions should be able to be answered in 300 to 400 words. Please make sure you are using your time wisely, and the midterm and the final for this course are not going to be cumulative, so it's just going to relate to the material from that half of the class. Lastly, you will be expected to do a research essay in this class. The research essay will bring in material from outside of this class, so you will be expected to read something beyond the text for this class, and you will be addressing a topic from the course. I will provide a bank of topics and ideas that you can choose from. If there's also something that you are adamant about writing about, then please let me know so that we could come up together with a good question for you to answer in the essay. If you just start writing an essay that doesn't really apply to any of the prompt questions, it may be the case that your thesis statement is too narrow, to which you will not be able to write 1,500 words, or it might be too broad and you'll try and write too few words in a paper that will require much more. So I will provide a bank of topics, and you can choose from those what to write your research essay about, and also how to address the question or topic that is being discussed. In addition, I will provide lectures about what writing styles you should be using or tactics that you should be taking when it comes to writing in philosophy. And I will provide announcements and lectures that discuss your research essay in more depth later on as we get through the course. So once again, I expect everyone to participate in these discussions. I expect you to participate in the journals, taking the quizzes. And because this is an online class, it's very important that there is an open line of communication. So if you're ever having any problems or you don't understand something, please make sure you are communicating that to me as soon as possible. Because this is an online course, if I don't know that you're having a problem, I don't know how to fix it. So please make sure that you are letting me know if anything is problematic moving forward. One thing on Canvas particularly that I'd like you to take a look at is the syllabus. You can find the syllabus tab on the left column of Canvas, and some areas that you should focus on is obviously the contact information and the assessment percentages, but also look to the attendance policy and the late policy. The attendance policy is geared towards your participating in the class, and the late policy is important because if you turn assignments in late, you will receive a deduction in points. So please make sure you are submitting everything on the proper date when it is due. And Canvas has all of those dates populated for you. So when you click into the assignment, you will be able to see when the discussions, when the journals are due, when the quizzes are due, and so forth. Also, please refer to the course schedule at the bottom of the syllabus so that you know when the midterm will be, when the research paper is due, and when the final will be. Now, moving on to general introduction of philosophy. It may be the case that you've never taken a philosophy class before, and so it's important to really just understand what philosophy is. And one of the things that philosophy is not is the study of questions that cannot be answered. Even though when we look at a lot of these philosophical topics moving forward, there may not be a definite answer, that doesn't mean that philosophy doesn't progress and answer questions. Philosophy often addresses questions that have answers, and we learn a lot from philosophy. Typically, what has been thought is that when we study and really begin to know a topic, it becomes its own discipline. So when we think back to ancient Greece, everything academic was considered philosophy. And then as we start to learn areas within specific topics, these topics branch off from philosophy. So when we start to learn more about the stars and planets, that part of philosophy branches off to astronomy. When we learn more about the human body and other creatures, then the discipline branches off to biology or anatomy. Most recently, one of the branches to come from philosophy that we now focus on is psychology. Again, once a topic of philosophy, now we have learned a great deal about human behavior and how the brain works. And from that, we branch off to a new discipline that we can focus our attention on. So as we move forward in this class, our goal is to try and understand these topics better, to try and get at some level of the truth or understanding, and not just simply thinking about topics that have no solution or answer to them. At its best, philosophy is a very rigorous, careful, well-argued, precise, and thoroughly consistent discipline along with science. We typically are going to ask in this course, what is the nature of reality and how can we know it? Typically, there are three divisions of philosophy. We are going to focus on two of them in this class. The first division, known as metaphysics, known as epistemology, asks the question, what is knowledge? How do we know that we know something? What does it mean to know something? The next division is metaphysics. What is real? What exists? How can I understand my reality? And then the last division that is more geared towards philosophy 102B is value theory, where we address questions about rightness and goodness. This is where we focus on topics like ethics or political philosophy, where we focus on certain aesthetic philosophies, the value of art, the value of music. And so, for epistemology, the study of knowledge, we'll continually question how is it that we can know anything about the world and its reliability, and to the extent that we know what is truth. Two examples of epistemological questions that we may ask in this course is, how do we know that something is true? And can I, in fact, trust my senses to tell me whether or not something may be true? As far as metaphysics go, we may ask ourselves in this course, what is the nature of reality? And as we move forward, we will address the reality and the nature of topics such as free will or personal identity. And so, what does it mean to have free will? If we are not the same person over time, should we be held morally responsible for the promises made by the former person, even though I am a different person currently? Once again, the study of what is right or good, value theory, is not something that we will be touching on in this class. There are other classes that are geared towards that. But perhaps a couple questions pertaining to our values might include, how should I behave toward my fellow citizen? And should animals be treated with respect? Basically, anything having to do with value judgments that we make throughout our lives. And so other philosophical inquiries or disciplines fall into these three divisions, such as the philosophy of art or political philosophy, even the philosophy of science, the philosophy of mind. Many of these philosophies come from the different divisions, and we will touch on many of them as we move forward in this class. And so now that we have a general understanding of what philosophy is, it's important to first understand the value of this discipline before really jumping into any specific topic. And to help us with this is Bertrand Russell. a 19th, 20th century philosopher, mathematician, pictured here. So, one of the fathers of analytic philosophy, born in England, and won a Nobel Prize in 1950 for literature. Some of Russell's accomplishments include the Nobel Prize, the discovery of Russell's paradox, an important step forward in set theory. And he published a widely read treatise on symbolic logic, which is another division of philosophy. But rather than being about aspects of the world, logic is more of our toolkit for how we navigate the other three divisions. And so Bertrand Russell, when talking about the value of philosophy, believed that philosophy is not valuable for the same reasons that physical sciences are valuable. And you'll notice that as we move through this course. In many courses that you take in school, when the course is finished, you will have learned concrete facts or information such as names, dates, formulas by the time you're done. Philosophy is a bit different, however. And in fact, by the time this class is over, you may know less than what you start with. A very popular quote attributed to Socrates in ancient Greece was that the only thing that he knew was that he didn't know anything. And so before starting this class, we probably have some idea or understanding about what free will is, whether or not God exists or doesn't exist. We might think we have criteria for what it means to count something as knowledge. But as we move through this class, you'll see that these answers may not suffice, and that understanding any of these topics and having concrete answers for these topics are a lot more difficult than we may think. And so you may be unsure about these topics when this class is over. Philosophy and the benefit that philosophy provides is more indirect. The only direct value that philosophy really gives us is the value of being able to analyze and critically think about topics. We are being trained to be better critical thinkers. We are using methods of argumentation to try to discover truths. We're becoming better at using logic. But in terms of the indirect value that philosophy gives, is that essentially the person studying philosophy attends to not only the goods of the body, not only the practical, everyday tasks that we do, but philosophy attends to the mind as well, to our sense of empathy, to our sense of understanding, to recognize the strengths and flaws in our beliefs, and is able to set us free Now, this idea of freedom and setting oneself free is something that Bertrand Russell focuses on in his piece, The Value of Philosophy. He also focuses on building up one's own view of life and cultivating awareness about different cultures and ideas. And by doing this, we're learning how to be better critical thinkers. And so, to discuss freedom a little bit, by studying philosophy, we're going to start to question and understand the strengths and weaknesses of our beliefs. And by understanding the weaknesses of those things that we believe, we are being set free from the weight of having stubborn and irrational beliefs. By studying philosophy, we learn that these questions and beliefs about the world that we think are absolute and true are actually very problematic. And when we recognize and understand that our understanding of the world and beliefs can be problematic, it allows us to take a step back and to appreciate other perspectives, other arguments. We don't need to be stubborn about what we believe, because it could be the case that our arguments are problematic and flawed, which they typically are. If someone believes something different from me, and we both have differing arguments for why we think something is true, I need not be emotionally affected that the other person doesn't believe the same thing I do. I don't need to hold firm to my beliefs regardless of new knowledge and new scientific discoveries that come about. I can relax and feel a sense of weightlessness that I don't have to hold on to any particular beliefs without good argumentation. Now, this doesn't mean that I need not believe anything. It's just simply that I believe what provides the most reason and clear, valid, sound argumentation to back it up. When new evidence and new information comes along, then I'm able to alter my beliefs about a given topic. I'm free to change. And this is a very powerful aspect of philosophy. Another indirect value that philosophy provides is this ability to just understand different perspectives on the world and give us a better sense of our lives and the world in which we live. It allows us to become more tolerant and less biased. Because again, we're free, we're able to understand different perspectives. We don't need to get aggravated at somebody who believes something differently. Doing philosophy also helps us cultivate our awareness about the world. It makes us more empathetic, more compassionate. We're able to see different perspectives on given issues. And from that, we build up our emotional intelligence. We build up our ability to see from different perspectives, to communicate. And this in turn helps make us free. Understanding the pros, the cons of an argument. Understanding where our beliefs can possibly become problematic and where others' beliefs can succeed or be problematic. Lastly, philosophy helps us with our ability to critically think, to analyze topics. Throughout this course, you will be asked to think about specific topics like the existence of God, like personal identity. And in each instance, you will be having to use the tools of critical thinking to aid you in understanding the best arguments for theories about the world or knowledge. And it's through these things that philosophy really becomes valuable. So I often joke, you may have heard, that philosophy is one of these subjects that qualifies you for anything. No matter what job you get in the future, your ability to be free, to cultivate awareness, to be a better critical thinker, will allow you to become better at whatever you do. It'll make you into a better thinker, a better communicator, a better listener, a better reader, so that you can pick up knowledge in whatever area you want. And while philosophy qualifies you to do anything, it also qualifies you for nothing. By the end of this class, you're not going to know how to swing a hammer better. You're not going to know how to be a better coder. You're not going to know how to break bad news gracefully to a loved one. So while you're not going to learn any of that stuff, you will be able to learn that stuff with the skills presented in philosophy. This is the value of philosophy, and this is what we need moving forward. And so, concerning this value of philosophy, Russell concludes his piece with this quote. Essentially, that above all else, doing philosophy, the greatness of philosophy, renders the mind as great and creates a union between the mind and the universe, which is of the highest good. And so, something to think about. something expressed by an 18th century philosopher, Voltaire, who suggested that even though ignorance in certain instances may make someone happier, humans nevertheless are drawn to the despair of ignorant contentment. Now, what I disagree with, however, is the fact that Voltaire suggested that there is this despair in knowledge, or rather a despair in knowing that we don't know. This is, of course, something that we can direct Russell's freedom toward. It is not the despair of knowing that we don't know. Instead, it is a freedom and happiness that we do not need to waste our energies and efforts, our time and thought on what the world would be like if we didn't have certain truths. Instead, we can sit back and look at the world and try to understand it the best we can, but recognize that our knowledge is constantly changing, evolving, the world around us changing, evolving. And our ability to change and evolve with it is free, is happiness.